This ain't just a channel, this is BBTV.
It's Thankful Thursday, a pause in the chaos to notice what still holds up, keeps us going, or surprised us this week in the best way. Gratitude lives here. It's
A boss be rising, BBTV's igniting, turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel road to the neon dream, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss be rising, sky ain't even the ceiling when she hits go live, everybody feels it.
Well, hey, y'all. Look, today already feels a little different because this one is one of those conversations that does not come from a perfect place. It comes from a real one. But first, hey there, Chris. How you doing? Good to have you, my friend. Now, gratitude gets talked about like it is something you switch on when everything lines up, when life looks good, right? When you finally feel settled. But what about when it is working? Just not the way you expected it yet. What about when things are moving, but you are still trying to make sense of it? That's where this sits today because sometimes nothing is actually wrong. You just have not seen it fully line up yet. And if you are not careful, you will miss the movement because you are too focused on the outcome. So, you will miss the progress because hey, it does not look like what you thought it would. And that is where the people start questioning everything. Start second guessing, start pulling back when they should be paying attention, right? So today is not about forcing gratitude, and it's definitely not about pretending everything is perfect. It is, however, about recognizing what is already in motion. It's about seeing the small shifts, the quiet progress, even if they are not loud yet. Because when you can do that, you can sit in that space without rushing past it. You start to understand something important. You start to understand that growth does not always announce itself. And that's true in any situation, your job, your life, anything. It does not always come in big moments. Sometimes it shows up in pieces, in patterns, in things that only make sense when you step back and really look at them. And I know my YouTube creator friends all understand what that means. And if you can catch that while it is happening, if you can feel that without needing it to be complete first, that is a different kind of awareness. That is a real confidence that starts to build. Not from everything being done, but from knowing that it is working. And today, that is what we're leaning into, not the highlight version, not the polished version, okay, but the honest version, the one that says, I see it moving, and that is enough for right now. So let's get into this one today because I have 5 artists today that I think totally fit this format. And the first one, we are going to start with a queen, my friends. Let me slide on over. We are talking about Miss Mary J. Blige. Let me tell y'all something, okay? When we start talking about being thankful, not the pretty version, not the social media version, but the real kind that sits in your chest and doesn't need an audience, you cannot have that conversation without bringing up Miss Mary. Now, hold on, because Mary is not one of those artists, that you just play in the background. Oh, that's so sweet of you. I'm not really, but I appreciate that. Thank you. Saxon shorts. Cool. I'll have to check you out. I like shorts. So, keep it moving, right? Mary is somebody you feel. And when you feel her, you start remembering things you thought you were done with. You start thinking about moments you don't usually revisit because Mary doesn't sing from the finish line. She sings from the middle of it, from the part where, you are still trying to figure out how to breathe through what you are going through. That is why something like that no more drama. It doesn't just hit your ears, it hits your life. That song is not a performance, it's a decision. It is that moment when you wake up and realize, I can't keep doing this to myself. And let's be honest, we all have had that kind of moment. It may not have looked the same, it may not have sounded the same, but we have all had a point where we said simply, something has to change. And if I do not know yet, that's okay. I'll get there, you know? Fortnite guys, LOL. Hi, how you doing? Good to see you. Thanks for being here. So that right there is where gratitude starts to get real, I think, because it's not loud, it's not shiny, it's quiet. It's the kind of gratitude that shows up after you survive something, right? And something you thought that might take you out. Now, see, most people like to talk about being thankful when everything is going right, when the bills are paid, when the relationships are smooth, when life feels easy. But Mary's music, it reminds you that sometimes the deepest gratitude shows up after everything went wrong, after the nights you cried it out, after days you did not have answers, times you question yourself and still kept going. That's the real gratitude you can't fake. That's the kind that sits in your spirit and changes how you move. And then you hear something like, be without you. And now we are in a different space. Now we're talking about what it means to hold on to something real, not something temporary, not something convenient. But listen to the lyrics. Seriously. Something that actually stays. And when you have been through chaos, and we know she has, when you've been through instability, you start to recognize the value of that realness in a way you didn't before. You start to appreciate the calm, the quiet, appreciate the people and the things that do not require you to break yourself just to keep them. And that's another layer of gratitude. It's not just being thankful for what you survived. It is being thankful for what you have now and that does not hurt you. And well, Miss Mary has always had this way of walking you through that transition. She does not rush you past the pain. She does not pretend it didn't happen. She lets you sit in it just long enough to understand it, and then she moves you forward. By that time, you get the other side. You realize something shifted. You're not the same person you were before. You think differently. You choose differently. You carry yourself differently. And you know what? That is where real confidence starts to build too. Not from pretending everything is perfect, but from knowing you have already made it through something that should have broken you. And once you know that, once you feel that in your bones, it changes everything. You stop settling for less. You stop entertaining things that drain you. Stop explaining yourself to people who were never trying to understand you in the first place. Because now you know your value is not up for debate. And see, that is why Mary matters in this conversation, because she represents that full journey, not just the highlights, not just the success, the whole thing, the struggle, the healing, the rebuilding, and the standing right back up again. And when you listen to her, and you cannot help but reflect on your own path, you start thinking about the versions of yourself you had to leave behind. Who doesn't? The things you had to let go of, the situations that forced you to grow, whether you were ready or not. And you realize, I'm thankful I did not quit. Not because it was easy, not because it was pretty, but because you kept going anyway. And that is the kind of gratitude that stays with you. That's the kind that does not disappear when life gets a little shaky again. You need some longevity here, right? Because you now have proof, you have evidence, you have lived through something that showed you who you are when things are not perfect, just like she did. And baby, that's powerful. That is something nobody can take from you. And I think that is what people miss when they rush through gratitude. They want to skip to the good parts. They want to celebrate the outcome without acknowledging the whole process. Trust the process. I know y'all have heard that before, but the process is where the meaning is. The process is where growth is, where you learn what you are made of. And Mary's music keeps you connected to that too. It keeps you grounded in the truth that you are still here, still standing, still figuring it out. And that counts for something. It counts for a lot, actually. So when you say we are thankful today, it is not just for what looks good, it is for what we came through. You got to go through it to get through it, as my wonderful sister used to say when she talked to me. Family happens, right? Life happens, and this has happened. It is for what we survived, all of this. It's for the strength we did not know we had until we needed it. And if you can sit in that for just a moment, if you can really feel that whole thing without rushing past it, you'll realize you have more to be thankful for than you thought. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are still moving, breathing, waking up every single day. And sometimes, look, y'all, that is more than enough. It is way more than enough for me. And if it's not for you, you really need to consider it. Like maybe a full reevaluation. Seriously. I'm not trying to tell y'all what to do, but let me say this. These people, sure, they're famous. Absolutely. Mary J. Blige is very famous. I mean, back in the day, kind of famous, okay? But she has a story, and it's a human story. That's my point. We have lots of those human stories. And you don't have to be famous to be human. And you know what? Sometimes you do have to be famous to get a point across. It's just that way. All right. Our next one, an oldie but a goodie. Oh, Nat King Cole. And that is not up there. Wow. I missed one. Here we go. Now, hold on a second. Because gratitude does not always come in loud, right? Not in a loud, dramatic way. Sometimes it shows up in the quietest spaces, the simplest moments, the ones we almost overlook because nothing feels urgent, nothing feels broken, nothing is demanding our attention. And that is where Nat King Cole sits. His music does not chase you down, it does not pull you into chaos. It invites you to slow down. And in a world where everything moves fast, where everything feels like it needs to happen right now, that kind of energy is easy to miss if you're not paying attention. Because songs like LOVE or Smile, they're not trying to prove anything. They're trying to compete, or not trying to compete. They just exist in a space that feels steady. Steadiness, calm, the sense of ease, that is something to be thankful for, especially if you have been through seasons where nothing felt stable at all. Now, think about it for a second, okay? When life is loud, when everything is shifting, when you are trying to figure things out, you do not always realize how valuable peace is. You don't notice it because you're focused on survival and on fixing, on moving forward. But when you finally reach a moment where things are quiet, where you can sit, breathe, and not feel like something is about to fall apart, that's a different kind of gratitude. That is the kind that does not need words. It just settles in your body. And Nat King Cole's music carries that feeling. It reminds you that not everything has to be intense to be meaningful. Not everything has to be a breakthrough to matter. Sometimes the fact that nothing is wrong is a blessing. And that can be hard to accept because we get used to measuring our lives by big moments, big wins, big changes, all the happy reels, all the good stuff that goes on that, normally doesn't go on or whatever. But you know what I'm saying? Look, we start to think that if something is not dramatic, it's not important. But that's not true, is it? Some of the most important parts of your life are the ones that feel normal, you know, the ones that feel consistent, that don't demand your attention, but quietly support you every single day. And when you listen to something like Smile, you hear that message in a different way. You hear the encouragement to keep going, not because everything is perfect, but because you still have something to hold on to. You still have something good in front of you, even if it's small. And that is where gratitude deepens. It's not just about surviving hard times, it's about recognizing the value of calm times, about appreciating the moments where you are not fighting, you're not struggling, you're not trying to prove anything, because those moments are not empty. They are full of space to think, to rest, to reset, and to enjoy what you have built, or hey, you know what you have found along the way. And that is something somebody or some people, overlook all the time. They rush through peace like it's temporary, like it's not worth paying attention to. The only thing that matters is what's coming next. But what if this moment right here is something you are supposed to sit in? What if this is the part where you learn how to be present without needing something to be wrong first? Pretty deep thought. That is what this kind of music teaches you. Without saying it directly, it shows you what it feels like to exist without pressure. I mean, think about the song Smile. It's a beautiful song, but it's so sad. Smile, though. I mean, just those two words is enough. Without urgency, without noise, it's a good place to be, to sit through, And when you start to recognize that, when you start to value that, your gratitude shifts again. It is no longer tied only to what you have overcome. It becomes connected to what you're experiencing right now. The calm, the balance, the simplicity. And that doesn't mean life will always stay that way. It does not mean challenges will not come back. There's always going to be challenges, you know that. But it does mean you learn how to recognize and appreciate these moments when they're here. You learn how to slow down long enough to feel them instead of rushing past them, looking for the next thing. And that right there is a different level of awareness. And Nat knew. I believe it. Listen to his music. He knew. He knew. Look, it's not flashy, but it's real. And once you understand that, once you start to see the value in these quieter moments, you begin to carry yourself differently. You stop chasing constant intensity. You stop thinking everything has to be dramatic to be meaningful. You start to understand that peace is not something you wait for. Okay? It is something you recognize when it shows up. And when you do, gratitude becomes something you live in, not something you visit occasionally. It becomes a part of how you see your life, not just how you react to it. And that is what makes this segment important, to me at least, because it balances everything. It reminds you that while there is power in survival, there is strength in overcoming. There's also beauty in simply being, breathing, and simply existing without everything pulling at you all at once. And if you can hold on to that, if you can really appreciate that without needing it to be more than it is, you can find a kind of gratitude that does not fade away quickly, a kind that stays with you even when you think things are shifting again. And that is something worth holding on to, isn't it? I think it is. Certainly is for me. I'll say that. I hope it might be for the 3 billion of you in here watching me right now. Yes, I mean 3. I appreciate you, though. I love you. Thank you for being here. All right, so we have another one before we take our break. Let's see here. Guess who? Not an oldie this time, but we have this. DJ Khaled. Yeah. Y'all, I'm eclectic. I love all music, so don't even go there. Now, this next one shifts the energy just a little bit, okay? Because gratitude does not always whisper. Sometimes it shows up loud, bold, and unapologetic. And what that is exactly where DJ Khaled lives, I think. Now, stay with me, okay? Because on the surface, it can feel like celebration, like hype, like we the best, no, me the best. You got it. Energy all day long. But underneath that is something a lot of people overlook. That kind of energy does not come from nowhere. It comes from somebody who understands what it feels like to not be seen, to not be taken seriously, and to have to push their way into rooms that were not built for them. And when you look at it through that lens, that loud gratitude starts to make a little bit more sense. It is not just noise, okay? It is recognition. It is somebody saying, I see what I built. I see where I came from, and I am not going to downplay it just to make other people comfortable. And that is part of gratitude that a lot of people struggle with, because we are taught to be humble in a way that sometimes turns into shrinking. You know it's true. We are taught to be thankful quietly, not to celebrate too much, not to draw attention to our wins, right? But there is another side to that. There is a version of gratitude that says, I worked for this, I earned this, and I am allowed to enjoy it. And that is what this energy represents. When you hear something like, all I do is win, it is easy to hear it as just a hype track, right? Something to get you moving, something to turn up to, right? But if you listen a little deeper, it is about persistence. It's about showing up again and again, even when things are not lining up right away, even when progress feels slow, when people are not paying attention yet. Because those wins, like right now, 3 billion, because those wins do not just appear, okay? They are built. That's what us creators here on YouTube do. And if we sound like we're hyping it, it's only because we want you to feel hyped. I mean, I'm serious. There are 3 people in here, and again, I appreciate you. 3 people in alive right now. I know you people over there sitting here watching me. And there goes one of them likes. So it's definitely a Facebook. Thank you, Paul. I see you. The point is, I am building something here. And I just put out a short that I got 10,000 views on. And it's been a while since I got one of those. No, my channel has not blown up yet. Yes, I am still a small creator. But let me tell you, that 10,000 views, I earned that. That was mine. Mine. I'm going to say it again. Mine. I worked my tail off for a little short that got 10,000 views. But let me tell you something. That's the first 10,000 views I've gotten since I got in a little bit of trouble and got demonetized and then got back and then all this. You know what? This is a job, y'all. But guess what? Here I am sitting with you, two or three of you, whichever ones you are. You know I love you. And I'm just going to tell you, I'm here because one of these days somebody's going to see my video and they're going to say, you know what? I think she was right about that. And that helps me. That's why I'm here. Okay. I don't blame him, DJ Khaled, for being so sure of himself because he should be. He did this. You know what? And when stuff finally starts stacking, when things begin to move, when you can actually see the results of all your effort, that is a moment to acknowledge. That is a moment to say, okay, I see it now. And that acknowledgement, that recognition, that is gratitude too. It's not quiet, it's not subtle, but it's real. And there is nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with feeling good about something you work for. There's nothing wrong with celebrating progress while you're still in it. Because he is. Come on, y'all. He's still in it. I can guarantee you that's all real gold. And he earned it. You know, a lot of people wait. They wait until everything is perfect. They wait until they reach some final destination that may or may not ever come. And in the meantime, they miss all the moments all along the way that were worth celebrating. They miss the small wins, the signs of movement, the evidence that what they are doing is actually working. And that's where this kind of energy can be helpful. It reminds you to recognize those moments when they happen, not later, not after everything is said and done, right now. Because those moments matter. They build momentum, they build confidence, they reinforce the idea that what you are doing is worth continuing. And when you allow yourself to feel it, when you allow yourself to stay in the moment and say, this is working, even if it's not perfect yet, you start to move differently. You start to carry that energy into everything else you do. You stop second guessing every step. You stop downplaying your progress. You start to trust what you are building, and that trust is powerful. It changes how you show up. It changes how you respond to challenges because now you have proof that things can move, that things can grow, shift in your favor. You know, when you stay consistent, that's what this segment is really about. Okay. It's not just about loud celebration. It's about recognizing the value of your own effort. It's about allowing yourself to feel good about where you are, even if you are not where you ultimately want to be. Gratitude is not just about what you have been given. It is about what you have created. It's about the time, the energy that it took, the persistence you have to put into something and seeing it come together piece by piece. And when you start to see it that way, when you start to understand that your work has value, your progress has meaning, then your wins definitely deserve some acknowledgement here. You stop waiting for permission to feel good about it. You stop waiting for someone else to validate what you already know. You give yourself that recognition, and that's okay. Because if nobody else will, you can. And that right there is a different level of confidence, too. It's not dependent on outside approval. It is built on your own awareness of what you have done and what you are capable of. And once you tap into that, once you really understand it, you don't move the same way anymore. You move with intention. You move with clarity, with a sense of purpose. It's not easily shaken, okay? That is what this kind of gratitude brings into the conversation. It balances everything out. It reminds you that while it is important to reflect on what you have been through, it's also important to appreciate the calm, important to celebrate the fact that you are still building, still growing, still moving forward. And baby, that is something worth acknowledging. So get to it. Now, I'm going to go acknowledge this wonderful song that I made. Y'all let me know what you think, all right? I'll be back.
She came from the quiet storms, built a fire from the ground, turned a whisper to a warning. Now her voice shakes the town. Every setback was a lesson, every doubt became a key, unlocking something bigger. That's the rise of Boss B. When the lights go low, her vision hits high. She built a whole damn network off a promise and a try. Every sunrise, every moment, she's stacking legacy. This ain't just a channel, this is BBTV. Boss B rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dreams, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss B rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's the queen of the comeback, the storm in the stream, crafting stories out of heartbeats, making visions out of dreams. Got thunder in the hustle, got a voice that cuts clean. Every mic she touches turns to power unseen. So let further spin the numbers, let the views rise slow or fast. Boss B doesn't measure wins by echoes of the past. This moment is a pivot, this season's history. Bow down to the founder of the BBTV dynasty. Boss B rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dreams, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss B rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's got fire in the head, it's got truth in the frame, got a heart that won't retire and a gift you can't name. Every loop, every letter, every dream she sets free, it's a love note to the world sign. Boss B. And the world keeps watching as the numbers climb, but she's counting all the moments, not the dollar signs. From the late night grind to the daylight scene, she's building something bigger than the algorithm's dream. Boss B rising, BBTV shining. Her story's rewriting, a legacy in real time. Boss B rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dreams, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss B rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. BBTV, where the stories breathe. BBTV, where the dreamers believe. Boss B rising, watch her take her place. This is BBTV, this is her grace.
Guess who's back? I'm back again. Charty's back. Tell your friend. All right, here we go. Yeah, Charty's my other nickname. It's Boss B. You know me. Now, here we go. Another one. If I can find the right one. Yep, right her. Alicia Keys. All right, so this one sets in a different space, if you ask me, because gratitude does not always come from what you survived or what you achieved. Sometimes it comes from who you became in the process, and that's where Alicia Keys steps in. Now, think about this for a second, because growth is one of those things people talk about like it's simple. Like you just wake up one day and decide to be better and everything lines up, right? But real growth does not feel like that. Real growth is uncomfortable and it's quiet. It's a series of choices that nobody sees, moments where you choose differently even when it would be easier not to. And when you listen to something like Girl on Fire, people feel and hear the confidence, they hear strength and power. All of that is true. But underneath that is a story about becoming. It's about stepping into a version of yourself that, you may not have fully recognized before. That is where gratitude shows up in a different way, because you are now not just thankful for what happened around you. You're thankful for what changed within you, and thankful for what that you did not stay the same. You are thankful that you learned, that you adjusted. You grew into someone who can handle more than you used to, right? And that is not always something you notice right away. Sometimes it takes a moment. It takes looking back and realizing I do not react the same way anymore. I do not tolerate the same things anymore. I don't doubt myself the way I used to. And that shift, that internal change, that is something worth acknowledging. It's easy to overlook because it's not loud. It doesn't come with applause. It does not come, as something other people always recognize or understand, but it's real. And it changes everything about how you move through your life. When you start to see yourself differently, when you start to trust your decisions, and when you start to stand in your own space without needing constant reassurance, that is a different level of confidence. And that confidence it's not built overnight. It is built through experience and reflection and making choices that align with who you are becoming instead of who you used to be. I think that's why Alicia's music fits into this conversation, because it carries that tone of self-recognition. It carries the message that says you're allowed to evolve. You are allowed to step into something greater. And when you do, when you really allow yourself to grow, you start to feel a different kind of gratitude. It's not tied to outcomes. It's not tied to identity or the realization that you are not stuck, that you are not limited to one version of yourself, that you can change and expand and become more aligned with who you're really meant to be. And that's powerful, because once you understand that, once you accept that, you stop holding yourself back and you stop clinging to old patterns, old habits, old ways of thinking that are no longer serving you. You start making decisions that reflect your growth instead of your past. Yeah, that's Alicia Keys, but that's real life. That can be uncomfortable at first. It can feel unfamiliar, but it's necessary. Growth requires you to leave something behind. It requires you to let go of what no longer fits so you can step into what does. Just like me, I gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, lose weight. I hate trying to change my clothes. My point being, though, there's always something that is so uncomfortable to move into. Even when I lost weight, it was uncomfortable to put on clothes that were smaller because I didn't think they were going to fit. But they did. And they look good. When you can do something like that, when you move through process and come out on the other side, even if you're still in the middle of it, you realize something important. You realize that you're capable of more than you thought, that you can handle change, and you really realize that you can trust yourself in a way you could not before. And that realization, that awareness, that is something to be thankful for. Look, not because it was easy, okay, but because it was worth it, because it brought you closer to yourself. And when you're aligned with yourself, when you are moving in a way that feels true, everything else starts to shift around you. Your relationships change, your priorities change, your energy changes. You stop forcing things that do not fit. You stop chasing things that are not meant for you. And you start attracting what aligns with who you are now, not who you used to be. And that is a different kind of peace. It's not the quiet peace we talked about earlier. It is a confident peace, a grounded, steady understanding that you are where you're supposed to be in this moment, even if you're still growing, even if you're still evolving. And that is what makes this segment important, because it reminds you that gratitude is not just about what you have, it's about what you have become, about recognizing your own evolution and honoring the work it took to get there. And when you can do that, when you can really appreciate that without rushing past it, you start to carry yourself differently. You start to show up in a way that reflects your growth. And that changes everything, not just for you, but for the people around you. Because now you are not just talking about change, you are living it. And that right there is something worth being thankful for. I mean, man, look at how beautiful she is and all the things that she's been through. I can't even imagine. I know we don't know all of it, but there's a lot. And can you imagine looking and feeling that confident? I can't. But I'm certainly not Alicia Keys either, am I? All right, so here's our next and final best for last, Andra Day. Listen, y'all, that song, you know the song I'm talking about. So this last one brings everything together for me, because gratitude does not always sound strong at first. Sometimes it sounds tired. Sounds like you're just trying to make it through one more day. And that is exactly where Andra Day meets you. Okay. When you hear something like Rise Up, that song, just the thought of it gets me, It does not come in loud and flashy. It comes in steady, almost gentle, like somebody sitting next to you saying, I know it's heavy, but you're still here. And that matters, because not every moment in life feels like a win. Not every day feels like progress. There are some times when just getting up, just continuing, not quitting is the hardest thing that you can do. And that is a kind of strength people do not always recognize, because it does not look like success. It looks like survival or endurance, holding on when everything in you wants to let go. And I know a lot of us get there. That is where this kind of gratitude lives. It's not about celebrating what you have achieved. It's about acknowledging what you have endured. It's about looking at yourself and saying, I made it through that moment. And that counts, because it does. It really does. There is a tendency to minimize those moments, to brush them off like they're not significant, because they did not come with a big result or a visible outcome. But those are the moments that build you. Those are the moments that shape how you see yourself and what you believe you are capable of. When you push through something difficult, when you keep going, even when it feels like nothing is changing, you are building a kind of resilience that does not disappear. You're proving to yourself that you can handle way more than you thought you could. Now, they say God only gives you what you can handle. You don't have to be a superwoman to be able to handle a lot, okay? You can stay when it's uncomfortable. you can move forward even when you are unsure. And that proof is power. It becomes something you carry with you, something you can draw on later when you face another challenge. And that is why this segment matters the most to me, because it brings the conversation back to something very real. Not everything is about growth in a visible way. It's not everything is about success or recognition or even clarity. Sometimes it's just about continuing. It's about getting through the day, getting through the moment, getting through whatever it is in front of you without giving up on yourself. And when you start to see that as something valuable, when you start to recognize that as something worth acknowledging, your gratitude shifts again. It becomes deeper, it becomes more honest, more or less about what looks good and more about what is real. And that is where something like Rise Up connects, because it does not pretend everything is okay. It doesn't rush you to the other side. It sits with you in that space and reminds you that you can move, even if it is slow, even if it's small, just one step at a time, but you can move. And that's enough. That is more than enough, because movement is movement no matter what, no matter how it looks. And when you allow yourself to appreciate that, when you allow yourself to be thankful for the fact that you are still going, still trying to show up, you start to build a different relationship with yourself. And that's the most important person to build a relationship with now, isn't it? You become less critical, more patient, understand that progress is not always visible, but it is still happening. And that understanding gives you room to breathe. It gives you space to continue without feeling like you are failing just because things are not perfect. And that's a gift. That is something you can carry forward into everything else you do, because now you are not just measuring your life by big moments. You're recognizing the value in the small ones, the quiet ones, the ones that you do not get attention, for, but still matter deeply. And when you can hold on to that, when you can really sit in that truth without rushing past it, you realize something important. You realize that you have been stronger than you gave yourself credit for. You realize that you have made it through more than you even acknowledged. And you know what? That realization, that awareness, that quiet understanding, that is something worth being thankful for. Not because everything is easy or because everything is figured out, but because you are still here, still moving, still rising in your own way. And baby, that counts. That really counts. So when you sit with all that, when you really take a moment to let it land, you start to see how all these pieces connect. Gratitude is not one thing. It's not just surviving. It's not just celebrating. It's not finding peace or recognizing growth. It's all of it. It's a full picture, full plate. It's being able to look at where you have been, where you are, and where you're going, and understand that each part has value, even the parts that did not feel good at that time, the parts that did not make sense right away, because they all played a role in getting here, getting to where you are, to who you are. And when you start to see it like that, you stop rushing the progress. You stop trying to force everything into a perfect timeline. You allow things to unfold, to build, to come together in their own way. And that doesn't mean that you stop moving. It means you move with a different mindset at a different pace. You move with awareness instead of pressure. You move with appreciation instead of frustration. And that changes how everything feels, because now you're not just waiting for some big moment to feel thankful. You're finding it in what is already happening, in the progress you can see, in the strength that you have built, in the fact that you are still here, still showing up, still moving forward, even when it is not perfect. And that right there is something a lot of people overlook. They wait until everything is done to acknowledge it. And by then, they've already missed so much of what mattered along the way. So if there is anything to take from today, it is this. Do not wait for perfect to feel grateful. Do not wait for everything to line up before you recognize what it is really working. Because there's always something there, even if it is small, even if it is quiet. And when you start to see that, when you start to hold on to that, you realize you are not as far off as you thought. You're already in motion. And sometimes that's way more than enough, don't you think? It would be for me. All right, y'all, that's my time. I'm going to get on out of here, but I want to encourage you yet again to get over to see my iron sharpening iron brothers and sisters, and definitely over there to Tuber Chat because they're the best. Okay? I will see y'all tomorrow for Freak Out Friday. Buzz you later.
I want to take a minute to shout out Tuber Chat. If you're a creator who's tired of surface level advice, yet says, and actually wants to understand how YouTube works, that's the space. It's real conversations with real creators who are in the trenches building channels, testing ideas. No posturing, no gatekeeping, no fake guru energy, just people sharing what's working, what isn't, and why.
If you're serious about growing, learning, and not doing this alone, check out Tuber Chat. The link is in the description. If you're enjoying this show, subscribing is the easiest way to support what's being built here on BBTV. You'll see the join button right next to subscribe. No pressure, no expectations, just an option for people who want to support the channel in a real way.
We're live every day at 3 p.m. Central now.
And don't worry, we didn't change the heat, just the clock. And if you've got a story you want to share, send it in. Anonymous is always fine.
Boss be rising, BBTV.